Daybreak with Steele continues right now on 92.5 Fox News.
All right, 479-5592. Email and text Steele at 925foxnews.com. Van Ellison is here. He's sitting right next to me right now. Van Ellison, you probably know, President and CEO of St. Matthew's House, and it's great to see you. How are you? It's been a while.
It's good to be with you. It's a beautiful day out there. It's nice to be in the studio.
It is, and it's great to have you here. So many things to talk about. I'm glad you're in the building. A couple of things. I know you have an event that's going to be taking place. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. It's very important for St. Matthew's House. First of all, for those that don't know about St. Matthew's House, talk a little bit about it.
Well, St. Matthew's House was founded in the late 1980s here in Collier County, based on people of faith coming together and saying, you know, there's a passage in the book of Matthew where Jesus said to his disciples, whatever you do for the least of these, you've done unto me. When you feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and provide food for the people in our community. And so they came together, formed a soup kitchen, a shelter. We've grown into a drug rehab. I mean, it's a pretty big organization with hundreds of people in our care every day, and we're just grateful that we're a local organization that gets to make an impact in our community.
Yeah, and if you have not had a chance to visit, I would encourage you to do so. It really is a fantastic work that you do. And a couple of things I wanted to talk about this morning. First of all, your column in Town Hall, where you talk about the president ignoring welfare reform and talking about the attention given to the issue of income equality and welfare reform would be a national priority, and the fact that it's not. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on the president when he talks about welfare reform and how it affects you.
Right. Well, you know, St. Matthew's House, we really believe that the free market system works and that the free markets really elevate the life of poor people. When you think of all the great fortunes or even the success stories, they're not because people got subsidies, but they're because people were able to get into the free market system, get a job, grow a business, develop skills. We have people that come through the shelter that have literally nothing, that just the clothes on their back, and a couple of years later they're donors because they've started their own business. And so what happens is in America today, we have a government bureaucracy that's really insulated from examination. As a business, I run a not-for-profit. You work in the business world on the radio. If you have really bad ratings and nobody's listening to your show, before long the management says we've got to do something, change up the format, get a new host. I mean, we make a difference. At St. Matthew's House, we regularly look at it and say, are we getting too flabby? Is there some places where we're not honoring our donors' commitment? And so we want to trim our budget. We want to be more profitable. We want to do our job well. Well, government, and especially when we look at welfare, there's more than 80 programs in the country that really, since 1996, haven't been really examined to look, are they effective and are they producing what we as taxpayers expect them to? Are they unleashing people from being at the bottom rung of the socioeconomic ladder to having an opportunity to not only be part of a safety net, but move forward to a better future?
Has it been hard to work in this time period with this administration, what's happening with the government, and is it different right now when you're talking about a nonprofit entity?
Well, it is different. The only thing that's really significantly different for us is a lot of people expect that the government's going to take a major role. St. Matthew's House, our budget, we do it without any government funding. And so a lot of people expect that in this kind of environment that the government's going to be coming to the rescue of the poor. And the reality is they're not. They're a small player in the local works, not only with St. Matthew's House, but with others. And we're doing great work seeing lives transformed. One of the things that's interesting is that, like the recent Obamacare mandates coming out, this week is the final deadline to get your exemption or to get insurance. And we're finding that the poorest of the poor, people making below $11,800 a year, don't qualify for subsidies through Obamacare. Yeah. So we have people in drug rehab programs, we have people in the shelter who legitimately are required to get insurance. They won't qualify because they're too poor for the subsidies. Yeah. And so you have this really bizarre situation, and especially with men. Women can get an exemption on that. Men cannot as easily as a single man. So it's just the way the laws are written. a majority of the people that would be served in any shelter in America wouldn't qualify.
So there's legislation that you would like to see the president pass, something that you would say would help with this?
We'd like to see the government start taking an objective, realistic look at what they're doing. Could we take the $1 trillion that's going to be spent in social programs and examine those and make a 10% cut?
Yeah.
Really thoughtfully look at one of the common programs we see is HMIS, Homeless Management Information System, which is mandated by federal law that agencies have to participate in a collection of a massive amount of data. We're required to have employees that work just on doing that type of work, and yet it produces nothing. It's just a computer database. You can't use it for anything. It's of no value, but it's mandated federally that for any government money coming into a community, they have to participate in this, and it does nothing. It's spent billions of dollars over the years on HMIS, all to no effect. And we think that, like any business, the government should take a look at itself. And I think that politicians are hesitant to do that. Nobody's out there beating the drumbeat. Let's cut the budget. But people have pet programs. They have their own territory that they want to guard. And I think objectively and realistically, as the president of a company, I look at it, and I have all of our managers looking at it right now. Are we lean? What can we do to ensure that we're here for the people that we serve next year?
See, that's so interesting you say that, Van, because I guess for a lack of a better way of putting it, is it hard to have a conservative approach? I mean, are you alone in this sea right now? Are you swimming in an ocean that's or going against the current? With conservative values in your business.
I don't know. There are a lot of people that really believe that local people make a better difference locally. And Tallahassee and Washington do not know what is needed on the streets of Fort Myers or Collier County.
Right.
And when we locally can roll up our sleeves, address the problems, we're all on the same page locally. You see a lot of people doing great work. There's still a mindset that somehow there's a big government approach. Since the war on poverty started in 1964 with Lyndon Johnson, you see well over $1 trillion. Now on an annual basis, you see those kind of numbers being thrown at social services. And yet the poverty rate hasn't changed.
Right.
Where poverty changes is when individuals get involved in a church that supports them, that helps them. When somebody sacrifices and works 2 jobs so they can start their own business, or they go back to school and they pull themselves together. When they get an organization like St. Matthew's House, and there's a lot of great not-for-profits out there that do this work, but we come together to elevate the lives of the less fortunate. That's when poverty ends. It's not on a global level, but on a personal level.
All right. Van Ellison is the president and CEO of St. Matthew's House. He's joining us this morning on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. We're going to talk about this event in just a second, but a little inside baseball. We had a conversation off the air that I want to have on the air, and I hope you don't mind, but I was looking at the button on your lapel, and I've seen it before. I didn't know what it was. Explain what it is, and then we can have the conversation about this.
All right, yeah. I'm wearing on my lapel today the Arabic letter, the 14th letter in the Arab alphabet is Nun, which is the equivalent of N. In the Middle East now, in Syria, in Iraq, some places in Egypt, the Islamic fundamentalist groups are requiring Christians to put a N on the outside of their homes or outside of their businesses, much like we saw in the 1930s that the Nazis required the Jewish businesses and homeowners to put a Yuden, or a symbol for the Jewish community, a Star of David, on their businesses so that people would know, so when it came time to round them up. In Mosul, before in June of this last year, there were several thousand Christians living in the second largest city in Iraq. Today, there are none. They've either been wiped out completely, they've been forced to flee, or they've gone into hiding. And when the ISIS took over that city of Mosul, as they've done in all those areas, they require all Christians to either put the Nun on the outside of their house. And so it's a matter of solidarity that we in the church should stand with brothers and sisters who are facing, which is an unprecedented Holocaust in the Middle East. You have countries even in a fragmentary population in Afghanistan of Christians and Jewish communities have been completely wiped out since 1980, when the Taliban really rose to power, and the communist revolts and stuff there in Afghanistan. All the synagogues, all the churches, everything have been completely wiped out in Afghanistan. And now ISIS is trying to secularize or make everything Islamic in their country. And we see the same thing in some groups in Egypt and other areas. In Libya, it's starting to happen. And so that's a matter of solidarity. There's a conference that St. Catherine's Greek Orthodox Church is hosting on March 14th to talk about the persecuted church and really the plight in the Middle East that's happening right now.
It's hard to forget or remember. You know your history, and you go back, and you forget about the number. We were talking before. What, 20% of Egypt right now is Christian?
Yeah, 20%. Egypt is the most diverse population religiously in the Middle East, as far as in a Muslim state. And they've had 20% of the population. A good segment of the population has been Jewish. Their rights have always been preserved through British rule in 1948, when Egypt became its own independent country. They still preserved the rights of religious minorities, and that's always been the case up until the Muslim Brotherhood took over, and they started systematically burning out churches, kidnapping, raping girls into Islam, killing boys. I mean, the UN report that just came out recently about Islamic fundamentalism, they target mostly ISIS, but throughout the Middle East and really throughout the world, there's unprecedented attacks against religious minorities, principally Christians, but in those Islamic states. And in Nigeria, entire villages have been completely wiped out. When those girls were kidnapped, and hundreds of girls were kidnapped, all the boys were executed. They were beheaded, crucified, shot. So you don't just see hundreds of girls kidnapped and put into a life of sex slavery. You see all their brothers were systematically executed.
Van Ellison joining us this morning on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News, President and CEO of St. Matthew's House. All right, quickly, so let's talk about your event now, Van, and what's coming up.
Well, we have several things happening. There's always a lot of good, fun activities. This weekend coming up in Naples, the Cars on Fifth, the Ferrari Club and Porsche Club, they're doing a big event for us. We're excited about that. We're going to see hundreds of cars, real high-end, beautiful cars, sports cars that you and I can look at but not drive.
It's okay. That's good.
It's a lot of fun, and that's the sports car clubs are coming together to host an event. It's the biggest one-day event in Collier County each year, and we expect about 40,000 people out there. And that's a fundraising event to help advance the work of St. Matthew's House. We have a Celebration of Hope as our big fundraising dinner coming up, our golf-a-thon. I mean, this is the season when there's something going every weekend, it seems.
Well, that's great. All right, Van Ellison, President, CEO, St. Matthew's House, joining us this morning on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. I know you got to run because you got an appointment with TV as well, so that's good stuff. All right, good to see you, my friend.
It's always good to see you.